Okay, in this video we're going to go over finding segment measurements in circles. But this time we're going to use two chords that intersect in an external point, okay? Not intersect inside, but external point. And it's actually very similar to another theorem, but this is how it works. If you wanted to find the measurement of this particular chord or any of these segments in those chords, basically you would say that the segment AB, let me just put that over here, times the segment AC, okay, so the whole chord, will be equal to the segment AD times the whole segment AE, okay? Now, let's go ahead and try that as an example problem. Let's say we are looking for this portion, this length right here, so AB. And we know that AD, for example, is, let's say, 6. We know that DE is 8. Let's make it bigger. Let's say it's 10. And let's say that BC is 12. So what would be the length AB? How could we figure that out? Well, basically just do a substitution. AB is what we're looking for. Let's call that X. AC would be 12 plus X, right? Not times X, but 12 plus X. We know that AD is 6, and we know that AE is 16. Okay, now let's solve for X. You see what's going to happen here? When we distribute the X, you're going to get 12X plus X squared is equal to 96. Now, as soon as you see an X squared, you know you have a quadratic equation. And remember, when you have a quadratic equation, you have two ways to solve this. You can either quadratic, this is where you're going to have to start using your algebra. There's actually three ways to solve quadratic equations, but the two most common ways are to factor, and the second way is to use the quadratic formula. And that's what we're going to do in this particular video, just because it's a little bit faster and easier. Now, in order to do that, quadratic formula, we need to put this in standard form. And remember, that's x squared, quadratic term first, linear term second, constant third, and you make it equal to 1. So we're going to say x squared plus 12x minus 96 is equal to 0. And from this we know that the a, the b, and the c, a is equal to 1, which is the coefficient in front of the quadratic term, b is equal to 12, and c is equal to a negative 96. Now let's take the a, the b, and the c, and let's put it into the quadratic formula. And you remember what that is. X is equal to negative b plus or minus square root b squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2a. Let's actually keep track of this, shall we? Let's just call that step 1, 2, 3. Step 4, I'm going to say, is actually finding the coefficients. Okay. Step 5 is writing the quadratic formula. Let's say step 6 is actually putting our numbers in. So a negative, whenever I replace variables with numbers, I always put them inside parentheses, and I'll show you why. So a negative 12 plus or minus the square root b squared, which is 12 squared, minus 4 times a, which is 1, times c, which is a negative 96, all over 2 times a, which is 2 times 1. Okay? Step 7. Notice how I'm doing this step by step, and a lot of people are going to take shortcuts. I really wouldn't suggest you do that. I would suggest you just go ahead and just write it out carefully and make sure that you get all the answers correct. So let's go ahead and start doing this. I'm going to get negative 12 plus or minus the square root. 12 squared is 144 minus a negative, which is going to be plus, and then 4 times 96, which is 300, and I think that's, let me see, it's 12. Let me just try that real quickly using my calculator. 4 times 96 gives me 384, so that's going to be negative 384, positive 384, all divided by 2. Okay, let's keep on going. Next step, it's going to be a negative 12 plus or minus the square root of 144 plus 384. And the square root is 528. The square root of 528 is 22.97. All divided by 2. Here, let's get rid of some of this. This is just kind of extraneous. There we go. Sorry, it doesn't look like this is going to work. That's okay, we really don't need that. We know that the square root of 528, this is my step 9, 22.97, which is basically 23, okay? So negative 12 plus or minus 23 all over 2, and my last step, 10. X is equal to, now this can't be a negative number, can't be the negative 23, because then it would be a negative divided by a positive, and we'd end up with a negative length up here, and you can't have that. So let's go ahead and make that the positive, and it's going to be a positive 11 divided by 2, which is basically 5.5. Okay, so we go back up in here and plug in 5.5, and that makes kind of sense, doesn't it? Because this is 6, this is just a teeny bit shorter. Okay, I hope that was helpful.